So how are we doing when it comes to our air? Did the pandemic have an impact? We're learning more this morning from the American Lung Association.
We're going to check in with Will Barrett. He is joining us live via Zoom. Will, welcome. We want to know what some of your findings have been, especially when it comes here in Utah. We know our air hasn't been the greatest.
That's right. Well, thanks for having me on. And today, the Lung Association released our 22nd annual State of the Air report, really to highlight local air pollution and air conditions, progress, and challenges across the country. And you're right. In Utah and Salt Lake City, we are seeing significant impacts due to ozone pollution in particular.
Well, so what's the big deal? We hear about ozone and all these other things, but what does it actually do to us? Why should we be concerned?
Well, we should be concerned because in our report this year, we've seen for the 5th year in a row, actually, ozone pollution increasing in the Salt Lake City area. And what that means for the many people living with asthma, for example, is that they're more at risk due to ozone, which is a corrosive gas that can actually have an effect like a sunburn on your lungs.
And as far as other vulnerable groups, we know during the pandemic people were staying home, not traveling as much, and it was really impacting some of the neighborhoods in kind of our the Salt Lake City area, like Rose Park and Glendale. What can you tell us about the air quality and how it impacts minority neighborhoods?
Well, it's a real concern, and nationally what we found in the report this year was that people of color are far more likely to live in counties that received a failing grade in our report. In fact, for people living in counties that received 3 failing grades, people of color are 3 times more likely to live in the areas that have the worst air in the country. And so it's a significant challenge, and that's why we're calling on the Biden administration to really prioritize environmental justice in their efforts to clean up our air and climate pollution and really target the benefits of zero-emission vehicles, renewable energy in communities that are most impacted, that tend to be lower-income communities and communities of color.
Speaking of the pandemic, a lot of people, I think, are thinking that possibly because people have not been driving as much, they've been not getting out as much, and we've been wearing masks, that we don't have to worry as much about it this year. Is that kind of a misnomer? Have masks helped our overall health? Has not driving helped the air quality?
Masks certainly are proven effective in limiting the spread of COVID-19, for sure. And I think that within the discussion of air pollution, our report this year doesn't capture data from 2020 yet, so that'll be in next year's report. But what we know is that despite the reduction in driving as people are sheltering at home for public health orders, we still have significant challenges due to ozone pollution. And unfortunately, poor air quality, especially particle pollution, can make us more vulnerable to respiratory infections, which we know we've seen on real display with the COVID pandemic.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the short-term goals that we can take on to address air quality and improving it?
Sure. I think one of the key things that we can look at are the sources of pollution, and that tends to be transportation pollution, also the oil and gas sector. In some parts of Utah, we see in rural counties significant pollution levels despite low population because of the oil and gas sector. So we need to do everything we can to clean up the fossil fuel industry and make the transition to non-combustion, zero-emission technologies for both transportation and the power sector.
So the good news is we can do something. We just need to act, and it makes a difference for each of us, I understand. All right, Will Barrett, one of the directors for the American Lung Association. Thanks a lot for joining us this morning. A very important topic that affects us all, really.